Something doll collectors of today have in common with doll collectors of 200 BCE is looking at a doll and wondering, but what if she had joints? Adding joints to dolls allows for better posing, realism, and today is often a sign of a higher quality product. The more joints, the better. But starting in 1999, ball-jointed dolls became their own subgenre of dolls. Produced commonly in Japan, Korea, and China, these dolls were known for three main things. First of all, being incredibly beautiful. Second of all, being incredibly customizable. And third, being incredibly expensive. However, within the last few years, the world of ball-jointed dolls has changed, or at least the way that we use the term ball-jointed doll. So today, we are going to be investigating this shift from the dollfies of the 90s to the blind box BJDs of today, including my own history with ball-jointed dolls. We have beef. I'm only kidding.
I was impressed that I actually got this far.
Dolls have been around basically as long as humans have, and of course, ball joints, which are a form of articulation using a ball and socket joint, have been used in doll making for really as long as we know it. But the term ball-jointed doll or Asian ball-jointed dolls, also referred to as BJDs or ABJDs, are really referring to a specific style of doll that came into popularity in the 2000s. In order for a doll to be considered a BJD, it usually has to have most or all of the following features. It must be cast in polyurethane resin, it must be strung with tension, it must have ball and socket joint articulation, it must have changeable eyes, and it must not have rooted hair, aka these dolls wear wigs. These dolls can range in size from like 2 inches to over 2 feet. And in case it wasn't clear by me mentioning that these dolls tend to be very expensive, they are created essentially as art pieces for adult collectors. So they're not made with the intent of kids playing with them. While today I tend to really enjoy looking into and learning more about dolls that are designed for the sake of like play and for a younger audience, I also have to acknowledge the really wide world and history of dolls being used as an art form. Doll makers have to use an incredibly wide range of skills for their craft, from molding and sculpting the doll itself, creating clothing for it, wigs for it, as well as painting its features on. And not only is creating the doll itself a work of art, but because dolls are often created to represent humans, they can be used artistically to invoke really interesting feelings and emotions that wouldn't be possible with using a human model. One example of this is an artist who's kind of been credited as influencing some Japanese artists that might have led to the creation of modern ball-jointed dolls, and his name is Hans Bellmer. Have you ever looked at a work of artwork and gone, gosh, I really need to rewatch the creation of Silent Hill 2 documentary because I feel like this is something that inspired Silent Hill 2. Because that is the vibe of this artwork. Now, interestingly enough, Masahiro Ito actually clarified that Hans wasn't an inspiration for Silent Hill 2. However, Hans would go on to inspire a lot of different Japanese surrealist artists who would then go on to make their own ball-jointed dolls. So it is possible that there was a little bit of like a trickle-down effect from him in terms of the inspiration. But it's also important to note that Japan had already had a super long history of the creation of dolls as works of art. And so the ball-jointed dolls of today could also be kind of just considered a natural evolution from that. But leading up to the creation of these dolls, one other important thing was taking place. As Japan was having an economic boom in the 80s, one particular form of artwork was thriving: anime. Described as a visual quality renewal, more works were being released at this time with more complex themes and plots and gaining international appeal. But within Japan itself, anime was developing really its own subculture of fans. And these fans, driven by the common fan desire to create based off of their favorite things, ended up building what are referred to as garage kits. So garage kits are hand-modeled figures that oftentimes a fan would create and then have cast in resin, and then other fans could buy these kits where they would put together and paint the figure themselves. As garage kits grew in popularity, the ways of producing them also grew, and eventually larger companies would be involved in the production. One of those companies who would produce garage kits, and still does to this day, is Volks. Volks started as a hobby shop ran by Mr. and Mrs. Shigenta. In 1972, when the shop opened, it was really mostly frequented by like elementary school age boys, but as Volks' own history page states, there was one person who kept the thought of having female customers someday on her mind. As the story goes, in 1998, Mrs. Shigenta saw a handmade ball-jointed doll that one of the sculptors who had been making garage kits with Volks had created for his wife. She became completely enthralled with it, with the Volks website noting that it felt like a doll that you could change as you like and that reflects you like a mirror. This doll is very precious. You can always hold it in your arms. This doll is another yourself. In response to seeing the doll, Mrs. Shigenta said, "How wonderful would it be to offer such lovely dolls to our customers?" And thus, it came to be. In 1999, Volks would release the first ball-jointed doll, as we know them today, called a Super Dolphy. These dolls were shown at a dolls party, an event that Volks continues to do to this day, where people can come and see the dolls in person, as well as oftentimes order them or enter into drawings to order the dolls, because some of these end up being very limited edition. But in 1999, there were really mixed reactions to the dolls. According to Volks, people felt really different ways about it. Some people were liking it and like the customization element, and Volks even ran customization contests to try and like get people hyped up about that idea, but other people were just like not into a new thing. But Volks kept trying, and in 2000 released what would end up being a really successful sculpt of these Super Dolphy dolls named No-No. And from there on, the company would really thrive. And not only that, other companies would start joining in the creation of these dolls. Another company joining in pretty early on was Lutz or Sybaris Project in Korea, but by 2006 we had a lot of the big players in the world of ball-jointed dolls on the scene, such as Fairyland and Dollzone and Eeple House, just to name a few. There are a lot. While ball-jointed dolls have never been like hugely mainstream, they have been used in some different works in media, such as the horror movie Dollmaster, and in the music video for Walking on Air, which went platinum in my childhood home. And as often happens with a niche hobby, a pretty intense international fandom ended up developing around the dolls. Arguments about what did or didn't count as a ball-jointed doll, who deserved to buy the latest models or monthly exclusive releases, and of course shame for either spending way too much on dolls, like, oh my gosh, don't you have other things to care about, or for being way too cheap and maybe buying a recast. All of these arguments were commonplace in the online communities. And how would I know this? Because I was in them. Not the arguments, the communities. I was too scared to argue.
This girl is very spoiled in that case.
Something that is not apparent when looking at my YouTube channel today is one of the many eras of my now like 16-year-old channel was being a ball-jointed doll creator. I made a lot of videos about my own ball-jointed doll, who was a Lutz Kidelf Daddy. Let's break down that name really quick. So Lutz is the brand name or the maker name. Kidelf specifies the size of the doll. Now each company that produced dolls pretty much had their own naming conventions when it came to the size of their dolls. However, the fan community would tend to use the names that Volks came up with when referring to dolls. So we have SD, MSD, and YoSD. SD, or a Super Dolphy, is supposed to be the 1/3 scale of a human, so they end up being around 60 centimeters tall. MSDs, or Mini Super Dolphys, are a 1/4 scale doll, which are around 40 centimeters. Then YoSD, the yo meaning something cute or young, are a 1/6 scale size doll and around 11 centimeters tall. Now, these are just the three main categories of doll sizes, but there are ones that are much bigger, much smaller, and in between those. However, a lot of companies do tend to try and hit those three size groups because it does make it possible for like clothing to be made by one brand to fit on different dolls. So there is a bit of an appeal to trying to keep some uniformity, even though a lot of these dolls will still have very different body sizes and shapes. An outfit that fits on one MSD isn't going to fit on all of them. But in my case, a Kidelf is an MSD size doll, so kind of a middle size. Then the word dari is the name of the sculpt of the head itself. So while a company would oftentimes just have a boy and a girl body that they would use for one size, so all of the Kid Delf girls had the exact same body, they would have different head sculpts. And these sculpts are usually christened with a name, a trend we can again tie back to Volks. The naming of the sculpts always feels really cute to me because it does give them a bit of a loved element. They're not just a product, they have a name. And these names would become really important tags for identifying dolls. Some of the most popular sculpts, if I hear someone say, oh, that's a Minifee Chloe, I know exactly what they're talking about. I know what that doll's head looks like. So that's breaking down her name. She is a Let's Kid Delf Dari, and specifically was named Delilah. After Hey There, Delilah. Back to me, in November of 2010, I ordered my Let's Kid Delf Dari after multiple years of both saving my money and begging my mom to let me make this purchase. Yes, my mom, because if you're doing the math here, I was only about 14 years old buying a $300 doll. If you're thinking, that's insane, yeah, I kind of agree. For some context, my dad was really optimistic about teaching my sister and I different savings and investment strategies, and we had this really complicated allowance system that I learned essentially how to game so I could just save up for big purchases. I basically just didn't buy anything or spend any other money. My sister was pissed that I did this because we had the same allowance system, but I was able to buy expensive doll while she was, being a bit more of a normal teenager and buying clothes and going out to hang out with her friends. And instead I just spent all of my time on the internet alone. That's not totally true. I did have friends I hung out with. I just didn't spend money. I just refused to spend money. So if this all gives spoiled kid, I completely understand. That being said, I also think my parents didn't fully feel like it would have been fair to say no to me because I technically had saved up all of this money using the system that they created. Did I learn about long-term investments or savings? No. I just wanted a doll. But the deed was done, the doll was ordered, and thus the wait began. So not only was she shipping from Korea, which just in general at the time would take a long time, but these dolls are also really often made to order, and that was the case with Lutz. They don't just have a bunch of stock ready to mail out. When they get an order, they have to then cast it and sand it and prep, do all of the steps to make the doll. So it would oftentimes take up to 50 days for the doll to ship out, and in my case would take a little bit longer because I had also opted for the company to do the doll's face-up. Now, what is a face-up? A face-up is the term used to describe the painting on the doll's face. So Barbies and Bratz of today, their face-up will be basically printed on with stamps, I'm pretty sure, but for ball-jointed dolls, they are hand-painted. So most companies like Lutz will have a base look that customers can opt to pay a fee to have them paint on the doll. In my case, that was around $60. Customers can also choose to just get a blank head, which then they can customize themselves, or they can commission somebody else to paint a custom look for them. This is where really a lot of the cool customization in the world of ball-jointed dolls come from. Because like I was saying earlier, a Minifee Chloe is an incredibly popular sculpt, but all of these dolls are Minifee Chloes, and yet they all look so unique and different. Changing the face up and the eyes and the wig of the doll really can make it a unique thing, which is part of what makes ball-jointed dolls so special. So all in all, it took about 3 months for my doll to arrive, and I had a little whiteboard on my wall that I would use to tally the days that I was waiting. When she did arrive, I absolutely adored her and pretty much immediately started filming content about her. I think I filmed an unboxing video. I was so excited about it. But how did I learn about these dolls in the first place? My own history with these dolls really starts with a book. So my sister had bought this book called Japan Eye, A Tall Girl's Adventures in Japan, and her and I became kind of obsessed with it. It's a comic book that details a essentially tall girl's experience going to Japan. Now, Amy, the main character, is a bit of a weeb and really into cosplay and dolls. basically who I would kind of become in the future. And in her book, she details her experience going to the Volks store, a holy ground. The Volks store that she went to not only had a big display of all of the dolls, but also had a system which is essentially like Build-A-Bear in the world of ball-jointed dolls called the Full Choice System, where you could go and like custom pick all of the parts of your doll to have them build it for you and like do a custom face up, all the like pick what color goes, so detailed. I would like to go so bad one day. And when I was reading that, you know what it really reminded me of? Angelic Layer. Getting to see someone get this ball-jointed doll that was amazingly customized, just like Angelic Layer, I was obsessed. So over the next few years, ball-jointed dolls would be a very big passion of mine. I took my doll to cons, I went to doll meetups, I sewed clothes for her, I made a lot of video content about her, but eventually, something changed.
That pretty much sums up how I got into the BJD hobby.
As is the case for many people, going to university changed me. Namely that I had to finally learn the skills that my dad was trying so hard to teach me as a kid, and I needed to save money. I had a really hard time getting a job my freshman year of university, and that combined with the fact that I was trying to really have that new year, new me freshman year. I'm changing, I don't have time for anime games and fun stuff, I want to learn, and also feel socially accepted, led me to really look at the doll that I was keeping in her box underneath my bed and decide that it would probably be for the best for me to sell her to somebody that actually was going to enjoy her and had the money and time for dolls. So I ended up selling all of my doll stuff. While I do really love my doll and I kind of like miss her sometimes, I don't totally regret selling her. I think it is really what made the most sense for me at the time, and I had a lot of other things to focus on in the moment anyways, like making 70 dream girlfriend videos. I was busy, okay? So because of that, I haven't exactly been like hip to the jive of what's happening in the world of BJDs over the last decade. But over these last few years alone, even I've been able to notice a change in the world of ball-jointed dolls. And that change comes in the form of blind boxes. Blind boxes have been just like a general trend over the last few years, but I believe that the Penny's Box line of dolls were one of the first in a ball-jointed doll style. Instead of just a solid figure, they had joints, which allowed for posability, and also had fabric clothes instead of just the molded clothes, which were the most common at the time. These are all mostly around 1/12 scale size, so they are smaller than the more common sizes of dolls. And that leads us to kind of one big question. Are these really ball-jointed dolls? The answer? If we're following the rules that I described earlier in the video, most of the time, no, these wouldn't count. A lot of them don't have changeable eyes, most of them have molded on hair, though sometimes you can get a little plastic piece to replace the back of their head so you can use a wig with them, and the plastic that they're cast in isn't the same resin that ball-jointed dolls are usually cast in. Those rules that I was referencing earlier are actually a shorter version of the rules that the discussion board Den of Angels uses to determine whether or not a doll is on topic. Den of Angels had been the place for English speakers to talk all things ball-jointed dolls through the 2000s. But the rules that they use for deciding what is or is not a BJD have often been criticized as being too restrictive, and that those restrictions end up leading to elitism in the community. Because remember, these dolls tend to be really expensive, and cheaper options oftentimes wouldn't fit within those rules. Don't get me wrong, these are handmade to-order dolls, so at the end of the day, they're going to be expensive no matter what, but by excluding dolls made of maybe cheaper materials from the discussion in general, it does make a higher entry cost into the community, which isn't always ideal and isn't really inviting to new people to join in. And while there have always been companies making more affordable dolls, it's kind of nothing compared to the price of the blind box dolls of today. In one of these boxes, you get a doll, a full outfit, its hair, its eyes, all for around $20. And in case you don't know, when you're buying a ball jointed doll, oftentimes its eyes, its wig, and its clothes are not included. And so you have to really go out of your way to buy all of those extra accessories, making it even more expensive. So there's just a lot of upfront cost into joining the community of ball jointed dolls. So while some parts of the community don't really consider them to be ball jointed dolls, other parts have really accepted them as ball jointed dolls. And they do have ball joints, so check on that major point. From what I've seen online, these dolls have been kind of touted as a great beginner option for people who are interested in ball jointed dolls. Because again, they're a lot cheaper. So they're a way to kind of like get introduced into the hobby without making a $100 investment that you're hopefully not going to regret. It also allows for people to practice skills like restringing, which is something that I never did when I had my doll because I was so afraid of messing her up. And if you want to customize your doll, it's a lot less scary to customize, again, a $20 little figure than a $200 head. So in some ways, I think it would have been really nice to have had one of these as an option for me to buy when I was 14. So I could get kind of like into the hobby, practice customizing and sewing and doing all of those things without spending all of that money. And of course, as well, there are just collectors in general who have regular ball jointed dolls or don't, who love these. They don't just have to be like beginner items for newbies, people love them, and it makes sense. I love them too. They're super cute, they're incredibly well designed, and they are still customizable, even if it's a little bit more limited than regular ball jointed dolls. So of course, these super cute collector's items are going to have massive appeal to doll collectors in general. And speaking of an appeal to a collector, I have a little friend here to open up. I'm so excited to check her out and open her up. I even put a poll up on my Instagram asking everybody what outfits they wanted the most, because when I first saw a photo of the girl in the like flared jeans with the ruffles, I immediately knew. I was like, oh my god, I want to buy one of these. And then it took like a year for them to finish production and actually come out. I ordered her off of Kika Goods. I do have a discount code, which is MaryLoveMew10 if you want 10% off. No pressure though. I'm so excited to open her up and see what one I get. All of these are such cute outfits and such cute characters. So it's like a win no matter what. It really is, which is the best situation when it comes to one of these blind boxes. I also think she might be a 1/6 size doll. She's definitely bigger than the 1/12 ones that I've opened in the past. Let's see who we get. I'll try and have it be very ASMR-y for you. I've been waiting. I pre-ordered this months ago, and then even before then I was waiting for the pre-order to go up. It's probably been more than a year I've been wanting to buy this, so it's just like everybody else gets to see her first. I'm scared. It's the exact one I wanted. Am I gonna cry? She's so cute, you guys. So first we have her clothes. One thing I really love about these is you do get such a cute detailed outfit. Like I said this so much in my little unboxing series that I did with Kika Goods, but these outfits, they're just so well made. They're so well made. And outfits can end up being so expensive for ball jointed dolls. When I was young and first getting into ball jointed doll collecting, what I really loved was the brand Doll Heart did Fukubukuro bags, which were like at the end of the year, whatever stock they had left, they throw it in random bags and you pay a discounted price for it. I was obsessed because it's like a lucky bag of doll clothes. She comes with 5 sets of hands. These all look so detailed too. I'm seriously so excited. And I think, like with her size, I can probably easily find other outfits. I might even try and get a like real hair wig for her. I think she's really cute. I love her face painting. So she doesn't have changeable eyes. She has painted on eyes. Totally fine with me though, because I think she looks so cute. See, I want to make her outfit. Like now I'm like, I want her to have little themed outfits for all of my videos. Crazy brain thing to do, but okay. I'm taking her out. Dude, she's just like, she's so detailed. I'm gonna have to maybe censor her a little bit, because another thing with ball jointed dolls is they are usually atomically correct. Anatomically, I can never say it. They include some details you wouldn't with most dolls. I love how thick her ankles are. Again, I'm just a fan of these. Also, this doll I think was about $40, so definitely, you know, more than the $20 small ones. I feel the quality. I'm still a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to like restringing dolls, so I absolutely would still avoid it. If the world was like, Mary, you need to, I'd be like, do I really though? Like, these pants are so cute. They were like the selling point for me. Were these pants. Oh my god, her face is so cute. She just looks so happy. That's part of why the doll that I chose was the Let's Kid Delfteri, is because she's smiling. And I loved that she just looked happy all of the time. I thought that was the best. There's got to be some psychology that looking at things that are smiling just like makes your brain happier, because I think that's what was happening for me. I crave smiles. She has shirt. Will you wear shirt? Just a girl in her doll. We're kind of like coordinated today. I love it. I love her so much. She is so tightly strung. She's having trouble like staying still. But oh my gosh, so adorable. So to finish off this video, this all just goes to show how like complicated language is, and that it does make sense to have a specific term used to describe the dolls that have been ball jointed dolls. But I do want to say it does make sense to me for us to include this newer style of doll within the ball jointed doll ecosystem and to have them exist together. This entire situation just made me really think about how I think about what a doll is. For a while, I considered dolls to only be ones that have like brushable hair. I was like, if it doesn't have that, it's not a doll. But like, she's for sure a doll. So I was like, well, maybe, you know, they need either fabric clothing or brushable hair. But there are other dolls that don't have fabric clothing that I still consider dolls. So it goes to show just how complicated all of this is. So I'm really curious about how you feel about the ball jointed doll side of thing, either as an outsider who maybe didn't know too much about it coming in, or as somebody who is in the hobby and maybe has some opinions or feelings about it. I just love all dolls. Full stop. I also, again, I love these as a more affordable option, considering a lot of the times the other kind of more affordable options that people end up purchasing can be things like recasts, which are illegally made copies of an artist's doll. And I don't support recasting at all, so I would much prefer options like this, or maybe even 3D printed dolls, as long as, again, all of the ethics are in line, nobody's having anything that they designed stolen. I'm really all for it. More dolls for more people. Doll Nation, rise up.
So now you know everything.
Thank you all so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.